So today we have two speakers actually from Asymmetric joining us, and it's Nazli Alagoz, and she's a data scientist / decision scientist, which is a title I really like, and Amira Mahfoudhi, who is in talent acquisition at Asymmetric, and she's going to give a short introduction on the company as well. And they're going to be talking about maximizing marketplace experimentation, so give it up.
Yeah, thanks. Oh, yeah.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me well? Great. We're very happy to be here with Nazli. As it was said, we work at Asymmetric, a consultancy firm for AI and data. Very excited to be speaking about switchback design for small samples and subtle effects today. Nazli, do you want to introduce yourself, maybe?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, our presenter said decision scientist, which is correct, but I put data scientist here because more people are familiar with it. But I'm a data scientist that focuses on causal inference at Asymmetric. So it's a bit different from what we have been hearing today with LLM and AI, but yeah, this is also one part of data science. Yeah, I'm happy to be here. Yeah.
And as it was said, I'm talent acquisition, so feel free to find me afterwards. We're always looking for good talents. That's exactly why I'm here today, so feel free. So very quickly, just before we get started about Asymmetric, we are, as I said, consultancy firm. We're setting the pace for AI and for decision science for our clients. What is important to us is really that we help our clients to transform into tech leaders, to increase their core capabilities and to adapt to their business model. And we definitely believe that the best way to do that is to use science, strategy, and technology this is how we create impact for our clients. So today we're going to be speaking about experimentation, as we said. Why do we do experiments? What kind of challenges we face? What is switchback design, and what to consider when implementing these designs. I'm going to leave you with Nazli, who's going to do that way better than I do.
Well, thanks, Amira. Yeah. Okay, perfect. Yeah. Hi, everyone. Yeah. Again. So let's get started. I want to start with a question. What do you think is the average success rate of the experiments? What I mean with the success is when you test an idea, how often do you find that it actually makes a difference? Do we have any guesses? Maybe you can shout out some. Cool? Yeah, even here. Okay, cool. I got some numbers. Yeah, good that you were low, so you were on the right track. But actually, it's on average 10%, so a bit better than some of you said. But that still means that 9 out of 10 times our ideas do not make any difference. They are just ineffective. And even if we look at the top tech companies, this doesn't change much. Most of the kind of ideas that they test out appear to be ineffective. But we can kind of imagine this, without an experimentation, it is really hard to tell which ideas work versus not. For these, we want to test them out. And imagine you have a business, for example, and you might have many ideas, but if you can't test them, you'll be kind of struggling and rolling out a lot of ideas that might not be very effective. Instead, you can probably avoid all these kind of stagnant phases by testing out ideas effectively and eliminating the ones that do not work as quick as possible so that you can move on to the next thing and test out to figure out what works actually. So with that introduction, I want to kind of give you an overview of why do we experiment. So as we just saw, the average, so most of the time our ideas do not work. And we want to kind of test it out, which ones work versus not. And experiments are like a really effective way to do this. And even the small changes that you make in your business or how you operate can have a huge impact on your both revenue, but also the customer satisfaction. And also with every decision, there is some uncertainty. With experiments, you can quantify this uncertainty, and based on that, you can make data-driven decisions, and you can actually make those much quicker if you use experiments. And very common way to experiment is A/B testing. I'm sure many of you guys have heard of it. Can I also see hands who's familiar with A/B testing? Maybe, yeah, almost everyone. So indeed, this is a really popular way. Many companies implement this, but just to be on the same page, I want to kind of give you a very simple example using a traditional A/B testing setting. For example, imagine you have a website, and yeah, you want to test it out if a different color of purchase button, like orange, works better than the gray one. And for this, in a traditional A/B testing setting, what you will do is split your population, your visitors, into two groups. One, you would assign just the baseline condition, so that would be with the gray button, and with the other group, you would assign them to the treatment condition, which is with the orange. And then after you collect the data, you will kind of compare, and with some statistical tests, you will kind of decide, okay, does the orange one work better or not? So this is useful for kind of a lot of, in many contexts where you have high traffic. For example, websites like, I don't know, Amazon, Uber, Booking.com, they have millions of customer interactions every day, and they can test ideas for at the customer level. And because you have so many visitors, so many customers, you can test out many ideas quickly. But this does not work so well in also many other conditions. For example, industries like airline industry, where we have really high stakes and low traffic. As a company, for example, we consult a lot of airline companies, and what they are interested in is to make some changes and measure those at the flight level. But you can imagine that is because every flight is a huge cost, right? They want to make sure that they maximize the revenues for each flight. But as you can imagine, we do not have millions of flights every day. So that is a very low traffic condition. So that means we have very small effects, small sample sizes. Another thing is that when we are trying to measure impact of some changes at the flight level, we'll be usually dealing with very small effect sizes. For example, 1% increase in the whole flight revenue. But that can mean actually quite a lot of revenue, maybe millions. So the stakes are quite high to measure these small effects, and we usually encounter very high variability in the outcome metrics that we are interested in. But why are these points a problem? Let's look at it, for example, small effect sizes case. So here I have like two plots. On the left-hand side, I have a case where we usually do not know the real effect, but in this case, imagine we know the real effect and it is 6%. In the other case, it is 1% uplift. And once we look at the 6%, when we try to estimate this effect, for example, through an experiment, etc., let's say we estimate at the beginning it has some variance when we are collecting the data, but just to mention, the blue shaded area indicates the uncertainty around the estimate. So, and as you can see, even though we have some variance, so uncertainty around the estimate, we can clearly tell that there's an impact. So it is way above the zero line, so the gray line. And we can easily tell that, this strategy is making a difference. But that's not so much the case for the case with the 1% uplift, even though it has the same amount of uncertainty because the effect is so small, it is really hard to distinguish it from zero, given the uncertainty around it. So that is why small effects require high precision techniques. And similar case goes for the smaller sample sizes. As I mentioned, we face, for example, in the airline industry, not with millions of, observations or units, but rather hundreds or even tens of units. And in this case, for if you have millions of observations that you can collect, you'll obviously have way more information, and that will help you make an precise estimation and then narrow the uncertainty around the estimate. But that won't be the case if you have very few observations, and you will not be really precisely estimating the treatment effect. But, it's not all bad. There are some ways to increase the precision of your measurement estimates. One way, simple, increase the sample size and increase the units that you are kind of observing. But this is not always possible. For example, with the airline industry that we work with, they can't simply increase the number of flights just for an experiment. But thankfully, we have some other ways. So I'll focus on the switchback design for experiments today, which is a really powerful way to increase the precision. But yeah, there are also some other ways when you can use at the measurement stage, for example, using some covariates, or I don't know, in machine learning, I guess they're called, maybe predictors, etc., to kind of ensure that your estimate is more precise. But that's not the focus, so I'll focus on the switchback design. So, before I get into it, how many of you have heard of switchback design? Yeah, 0. That's very good, because I think you'll take away quite a lot from this. And I think it will be useful, especially if you work in a causal inference situation. But this is really actually widely used in some areas, for some companies. For example, Uber or Lyft or Doordash, where they have, two-sided markets, and the actions of one customer or driver might affect the rest of the drivers or customers. For example, this example, I will give you an example to kind of tell you about why even companies started to use switchback design. Just let's start with an example. We have, let's say, we had Uber, so the ride-hailing platform, and we want to experiment with pricing. Let's imagine in a city we have like some amount of drivers, right, indicated with the cars here, and we have some riders, so just regular customers. And we have the control situation where we have regular price rides, but we want to experiment with, maybe cheaper rides will encourage people to order more and also result in higher revenue. If we implement this with a classical, traditional A/B testing design, we would simply split the riders, like the customers, into two groups and assign to one group cheaper prices. But you can imagine in that situation, the people in the cheaper condition, they'll be way more likely to order rides. So they will suck up most of the supply, leaving, everyone, but especially the control group with, for example, longer waiting times, maybe more issues, which will lead to even less demand from the control group. And in this case, you can see that one group, the actions of one group affects the other group. And this is what we call interference, specifically cross-sectional interference. And this is a huge problem for companies like Uber, Lyft, DoorDash, and many others. In many contexts, this is relevant. And with switchback design, we can design this in a different way. Let's see, for example, instead of splitting your population into two, you would assign everyone, for example, in a certain design, you would assign everyone for a week to the treatment condition with cheaper prices. But in the other condition, you would just, in the second week, you would just keep the regular prices. As you can see, in the first week, I just had the cheaper rides for everyone. So it is a very good simulation, basically, of what would have happened in the, if we actually rolled out this, cheap rides, discounted rides feature. And and there won't be any interaction between these two groups, so you will be eliminating that cross-sectional interference that might bias your estimates. So this is one way to design it, but actually you can go, creative with a switchback design. Instead of assigning everyone to either treatment or control, you can also divide your population into groups. For example, group A versus group B, and alternate the treatment between these two. So different designs are useful for just different situations. And so, okay, switchback, it looks good, but how does it help with increasing the precision of your, I don't know, measurement estimates? So first, yeah, we talked about the first advantage, that it can help with the cross-sectional interference, but as I said, it also helps with the precision. First, I will focus on how it helps through increasing the comparisons in the data. And second, I'll get into how it helps with autocorrelation in the data. Yeah, so I have a plot here where I kind of show, let's say, results from an A/B testing between two groups. So I split my population into two. One group is treated, indicated with the gray one here, and one group is, yeah, I should change the labeling here. Oh, wait, no, it is correct. So untreated is the gray one, and the treated one is the orange, right? And I plotted here just average revenue. Let's say we experimented and we are interested in if there are any changes in the revenue. What we can do is just compare across untreated and treated groups. So this is cool, especially if you have many millions of observations, that should give you a good enough estimation of your treatment effect. But we can do better with a switchback design. Here I have a plot where it's similar, but in this case, I have a switch in the treatment at right around just after time 6. So let's say first week, I treat group A, which is indicated with the orange one. And in the second week, I do not treat group A, but rather treat group B. So as you can see, first week, only one group is treated, and in the second week, the other group. So let's look at the comparisons that we can make to estimate the treatment effect in this case. First, we can compare across groups, right? This is the same as A/B testing. So this is already in the packet. We can just, I have two plots here, just, in the first week you compare, group A treated to untreated. In the second case, it is similar. But we can do more. So in this case, I have, in the first plot, just average revenue over time for group A. And the second one, I have it for group B. And what I can do, because there's this switch in the treatment, I can compare the treated period for group A to the untreated period. And that will also help me kind of gather information about the effectiveness of the treatment. Simply this allows for me to collect more information, but for people maybe familiar with heterogeneity, this can also help when you're the differences between groups or units might inflate your uncertainty in your estimates, and by comparing within the same group or unit, you kind of lessen the effect of that increased uncertainty. So this is one case how it helps with precision, but there's also another part of this which relates to autocorrelation. Yeah, what is autocorrelation? Probably many of you are familiar with this, but just to make sure everyone understands this, autocorrelation is when your today's data is kind of includes the same data from the previous day. So for example, daily temperatures. If today is 20 degrees, probably tomorrow it will be around 20 as well. So there will be some sort of variation But usually, when we are observing something over time, there will be some serial correlation. So a lot of the observations will contain same type of information, maybe due to, for example, ongoing trends. Here, like for example, seasons is the ongoing trend for the temperature. And this type of serially correlated data contains less information. Why? Because it just is basically the same data mostly for today and tomorrow. And this, because of this less information, we have more uncertainty when we are trying to estimate the treatment effect. But switchback design comes to rescue here, and by switching the treatment on and off, we can kind of decrease that self-reliance in the data. For example, in this case, I have the graph for group A. In the first week, it was, or first 2 weeks, it was treated, but in the second half of the period, it is not treated. And with introducing some sort of a change in the treatment status, we are kind of breaking that autocorrelation a bit. Of course, autocorrelation does not go away completely, but even that reduction helps quite a lot with improving the precision in the estimates. And if you do that switch on and off more frequently, you might even have less of an impact from autocorrelation. But of course, there's nothing for free. There's no free lunch, as they say. There are also some considerations, some things that we need to keep in mind if we want to implement switchback design. The first thing relates to interference, which we kind of touched upon, but this is, switchback design can introduce another type of interference. And also related to this, we'll talk about how often should you switch the treatment and business factors. So here, I mentioned that, switchback design became popular because it helps with interference, but it helps with a specific type of interference called like cross-sectional one, but it can also introduce interference over time, which is called temporal interference. I have here a very simple example, and it is, you might even recognize this from your daily life. But imagine a supermarket who wants to test out, if discount prices will, improve revenues. And they implement this with a switchback design. So in the first week, they have discounted prices. And of course, in the second week, and they just go back to the regular prices. And customers who, for example, go to shopping on the first week, obviously will just gather all the products that are on the discount and stock up on those products. And the second week, even though maybe normally they would go for shopping, they will be less likely to buy anything because they already stocked up on many goods on the first week. So as you can see, there's some sort of a carryover effect here where your treatment condition in the first week will affect the behavior of your customers in the second week. In this case, if you try to estimate the effect of discount prices, you will have an overestimation. And so in this case, you can kind of deal with this. You can first ask, of course, if switchback design is appropriate, but you can also kind of try to play with the frequency of the switches. The shorter the periods will enable you to make more comparisons and increase your precision, but it might also introduce significant temporal interference, which will bias your results and lead you to get misleading estimates. So you can play with this, and you can, if you are concerned with this temporal interference, you can either prolong the periods between switches, or maybe switchback is not appropriate for the situation. Of course, there could be some like business considerations. In some cases, it could be that the switches are costly. For example, for supermarkets, it could be costly to switch the prices, I don't know, every day or every week. Maybe not so much today, but you can imagine some situations where this could be a problem. And it could also be, it could affect your customer perception, etc. But yeah, I think that was basically the last consideration I wanted to talk about. And yeah, in this presentation, I talked about experimentation and the challenges that we face and how switchback design can help with some of those challenges. And from our experience at like our company, we almost always use switchback design. And we have seen that in many cases, it can increase your precision by more than 2 times. That means that you can just run your experiments for shorter time periods. Instead of running it for 2 months to get a certain amount of sensitivity, you can just decrease that to 1 month. And with switchback, you can do that and get the same sensitivity. But we have even, apparently, yeah, when I talked to my colleagues about this, I even heard that it could even increase the precision by 4 times or like decrease your experiment runtime by 4 times, which could, yeah, be quite impactful. Instead of learning something in 4 months, you would learn the same thing in 1 month. And yeah, I think that is all. Thank you very much for listening. And yeah, if you have any questions, yeah, for us or about the content or about the company, please come find us. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks a lot for this awesome talk. Are there any questions from the audience? We have quite some time left for it, so. Yes, over there.
Hello. Have you tried like combining them, like taking 2 groups and then giving both of them like a different scenario and then switching them after like a week?
What do you mean? Could you clarify,
So,
please?
for example, instead of like saying we do 1 week we do this and then
Yeah.
the next week we do that, you say we take 2 groups and then for 1 week, for one group we do this and for the other group we do that, and then the week after you switch them.
Yeah, I think it should be possible. Why not? But we haven't tried that.
Okay.
But I think it should be possible if you, yeah, everything is possible.
Yeah, I mean
Yeah.
maybe you like eliminate more factors.
Yeah, yeah, I think it could be, but yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks for the presentation.
Yeah, thanks.
If you were to go for a true switchback test, so without A/B testing, what would be the odds of outside influences influencing the results? So maybe, for example, for Uber, 1 week it just rains more and people take taxis more often, and next week it's dry and sunny.
Yeah, that's a good point. Indeed, to prevent that, what we do is we run it for a bit, at least for like, let's say, 4 weeks or something, so that we are making sure that, you know, there's not something weird happening in 1 week. But actually, if you think about it, even though if it is, yeah, if you do simply just divide your population, not dividing your population, just use the whole city and alternate between 1 week, then you might have that problem. But if what you can do is like use maybe 2 cities that is close by each other with similar, I don't know, weather, and then for one of them, yeah, you switch, and the other one you do the reverse. So for 1 week, you'll have in one city the treatment, and the other one you have the control. So then you can control for that type of factors, of course. But I think it is still more, it will be more advantageous than A/B testing for sure. Yeah, you can combine. You can kind of combine. I think they are related. But yeah, that's a good point. Yeah.
Thank you for the talk. In your experience, how easy or difficult is it to convince business to run this type of experiments? Do you find a lot of resistance to do these huge changes, or is it something that more or less? And do you have any tips on, how to?
Yeah, that's a good point. I think it's always sometimes difficult to sell type of different, I don't know, designs to the business. But in our case, I think they were quite open because they knew that without Switchback, they would have to run the experiments for months. And they did not want to wait months to just make decisions and get some results that they can trust. So in that case, they were a bit, they had to. But in some cases, especially if there are some costs of concerns related to switch, then you have to have really, I think, good reasons to kind of convince them. If they really care about the speed and precision, then it shouldn't be so difficult. But yeah, thanks for the question.
Hi, thank you for the talk. I have one question. So running such an experiment is quite expensive for the company, probably. And it requires a lot of prior preparation of making sure that experiment is set correctly so you gather correct data. How do you ensure that, are there like a chance that what you designed in the beginning, later in a phase you realize, oh, maybe we collected not all the data, or it wasn't, like, how big is the chance of such things happening?
Do you mean if something, I don't know, goes wrong with the design?
Yeah, with
or?
the design, because I think like the main point is the design part, because that's where you collect all of the important data. So you need to be quite, you need to plan quite beforehand what type of analysis you're going to do.
That's true. Yeah, that's a good point. So we always plan in advance, okay, are we splitting like the population into two groups, and we make sure that, for example, those two groups are very comparable. And also, we all already in advance decide how long do we need to run this for, and if there are any other, I don't know, maybe there's like a campaign that business is running, etc. We try to be aware of those. But design part is really important. But the alternative is A/B testing. If you have to, I'm assuming you don't want to do the not testing, which could be more costly eventually. So compared to A/B testing, there isn't so much of a difference, I would say. There's always, in both cases, you have to design, you have to ensure that you separate into groups, in a good way, and that you run the experiment long enough so that you have certain amount of power to detect effects. But that's a good point. It's a very important part.
Thanks a lot, Nazla, for this awesome talk.
Thank
and
you,
also for the awesome questions. So give it up one more time.
Also, Amira. Thank you very much.
And we also have the special PyData Eindhoven mug for you, so you can take it home. And then we're going to continue after the break, which will run until 4:05. So you have some time to have a small drink upstairs. Okay, see you then.